November 2nd, 1944. Late afternoon. Somewhere over occupied Czechoslovakia, Lieutenant Bruce Carr glances down at his instrument panel and feels his stomach tighten. The oil pressure needle is falling. Fast. A second later, black smoke pours from the cowling of his P-51 Mustang, streaking back along the fuselage like an ink spill across the sky. The Merlin engine screams in protest, metal grinding against metal, a sound no fighter pilot ever forgets. Less than a minute ago, Carr had been leading a low-level strafing run against a German airfield. Trucks burned on the tarmac, hangars bloomed with fire. Anti-aircraft guns answered instantly, black bursts of flak tearing the air apart. One shell fragment found its mark, punching through the engine compartment and severing the oil line. Without oil, the Rolls-Royce Merlin has less than 90 seconds before it seizes solid. Carr does the math automatically. When the engine locks, the propeller will turn into deadweight. The Mustang will become a glider with all the grace of a brick. There is no friendly territory beneath him, only forests, villages, and enemy patrols stretching to the horizon. He has one option. He slides back the canopy. Freezing air slams into the cockpit. Rolling the dying aircraft inverted, he releases the harness and drops away. The Mustang flashes past him, trailing smoke, then disappears into the clouds below. Seconds stretch into eternity before the parachute snaps open at 8,000 feet. The silk canopy blooming above him like a pale flower. The silence is overwhelming. Below, enemy territory waits. Carr drifts down into a cold November sky, knowing exactly where he is, roughly 200 miles behind German lines. He carries no radio, no food, no water. His only weapon is a .45 pistol with 7 rounds. Night temperatures here will fall below freezing. Survival statistics flicker through his mind with clinical precision. American pilots shot down over occupied Europe have slim odds of escape. Most end up in prison camps. Too many vanish into unmarked graves. Carr hits the ground hard. Pain shoots through his ankle as he rolls and comes to rest among fallen leaves and damp earth. He lies still, listening. No shouts, no gunfire. Just wind in the trees and the distant rumble of war. He works quickly. The parachute is death if it's spotted. He gathers the silk, stuffs it under brush, and buries it beneath leaves and soil. German patrols will search this area soon. They always do. He estimates he has 20 minutes, maybe less, before the net starts closing. Carr knows the airfield he attacked lies several miles to the north. He also knows what the Germans will expect, a downed pilot moving south or west toward Allied lines. That assumption will guide their search patterns. His survival depends on doing the opposite. He turns north toward the enemy. The logic is cold, but sound. The airfield offers food, water, fuel, everything he lacks. It also offers something else. Opportunity. Carr disappears into the forest, staying off roads, moving cautiously, favoring cover over speed. His flight suit is thin. The cold seeps in almost immediately. His ankle throbs with every step, but he ignores it. Night falls early. Carr travels in darkness, guided by instinct and distant landmarks. Hunger gnaws at him. By morning he hasn't eaten in nearly a day. He drinks from a narrow stream, the water so cold it numbs his throat. At one point he drops into a ditch and lies, motionless for hours, as a German patrol passes less than 200 yards away, boots crunching on frost-hardened ground. By the third day, the hunger becomes impossible to ignore. His body is burning calories just to stay warm. He has nothing left to give. Muscles ache. His thoughts slow. He begins to consider surrender. Luftwaffe pilots, he knows, tend to treat captured airmen with a certain professional courtesy. Prison camps are dull, miserable, but survivable. It would be better than freezing or starving alone in the woods. Late on the fourth afternoon, Carr reaches the edge of the German airfield. He climbs into a tree line overlooking the perimeter and peers through bare branches. Below him are hangars, fuel trucks, parked aircraft. Mechanics move under portable lights, working with methodical precision. He watches in silence as two men finish servicing a Focke-Wulf fighter. They check fuel. They run up the engine. The deep roar of the radial engine echoes across the field, then dies as they shut it down and walk away. The aircraft sits alone, fueled and ready, partially hidden beneath camouflage netting. Carr's surrender plan dissolves in an instant. He studies the fighter, heart pounding, mind racing. He has never flown a German aircraft. He doesn't speak the language. He has no idea how the systems work, but he knows how to fly. Throttle, stick, rudder. Physics doesn't care what language the labels are written in. As darkness deepens, a new calculation takes shape in his mind. Risk versus certainty, capture versus a chance, however slim, at freedom. Carr waits, motionless, until the airfield grows quiet and the night watch thins to shadows. Then he makes his decision. He is done running. The airfield settles into an uneasy nighttime rhythm. Engines are silent now. Lights are dimmed or extinguished entirely, leaving only faint pools of illumination near the main hangars. Somewhere in the distance, a truck backfires. A guard coughs. Otherwise, the base sleeps. Bruce Carr waits. His body aches from cold and hunger, but his mind is razor sharp. He measures time not by minutes, but by movement. How often a patrol passes, how long the lights stay on, how long the mechanics linger near the revetments. He memorizes patterns the way he memorized enemy formations in the air. Everything repeats. Everything has a gap. Sometime after midnight, the last activity near the parked fighter ends. The mechanics disappear toward the hangars, boots fading into the dark. The aircraft remains where it is, nose angled slightly toward open ground, wings stretched wide like a resting bird of prey. Carr exhales slowly. There are 80 yards of open ground between him and the fighter. No trees, no ditches, no cover. If someone looks his way at the wrong moment, the story ends right there, a single rifle shot in the dark. He checks the pistol at his side, then dismisses it. 7 rounds won't save him on an airfield full of soldiers. He moves. Staying low, he crosses the open ground at a half-crouch, each step deliberate despite the pain flaring in his ankle. 40 seconds feel like 40 minutes. He reaches the revetment and presses himself against the cold metal skin of the aircraft, heart hammering so loudly he's certain it can be heard. Up close, the fighter is bigger than he expected. He runs his hand along the fuselage, feeling rivets and seams beneath the camouflage paint. The canopy is closed, but not locked. That alone feels like a sign. Carr climbs onto the wing, pauses, then slides the canopy back. He drops into the cockpit and freezes, listening. Nothing. No shouts, no alarms. Inside, the cockpit is a wall of confusion. Every label is in German. Gothic script marks switches and dials he has never seen. The space is tighter than a Mustang's, the sides pressing in on him, knees nearly touching the instrument panel. For a moment, doubt creeps in. This is insane. He could be sitting in a coffin. Then training takes over. He starts with what he knows. Controls stick between his legs. Good. Throttle on the left. Familiar. Rudder pedals beneath his boots. Airspeed indicator likely top left. Altimeter near the center. Engine instruments clustered together. Aircraft designers may speak different languages, but they solve the same problems the same way. Carr works methodically. He traces cables with his fingers. He moves switches gently, memorizing resistance and placement. He finds the fuel selector and confirms it's open. He locates what he believes are the magnetos. The biggest question remains the engine start. On his Mustang, it's electrical. Here, he's not sure. On the right side of the cockpit, he notices a T-shaped handle with German lettering. The word looks like it might mean starter. He pulls it, nothing, pushes it back, still nothing. He hesitates, then pulls again and holds it. A mechanical whine fills the cockpit, rising in pitch. An inertia starter, winding up like a massive spring. Carr counts, silently. 10 seconds, 15, 20. He pulls the handle again. The engine coughs once, then erupts to life. The roar is overwhelming, a deep, thunderous sound that vibrates through his bones. The entire aircraft shudders. Carr knows every man on the airfield heard that engine start. Surprise is gone. Speed is all he has left. He shoves the throttle forward. The fighter lurches ahead, tires bumping over uneven ground. He doesn't bother looking for the runway. There's no time. He aims between. 2 dark shapes he assumes are hangars. Figures appear ahead, men shouting, arms waving. Muzzle flashes bloom as someone fires wildly. The aircraft accelerates brutally. The tail lifts almost immediately, the nose eager to fly. Carr keeps it straight by instinct alone. 60 miles per hour, 70. The hangars rush toward him faster than his mind can fully process. At 90, he pulls back. The fighter leaps into the air, clearing the rooftops by what feels like inches. Carr forces himself to breathe as the ground drops away. He's airborne. Flying a German fighter, stolen from an active enemy airfield deep behind the lines. Now he has to bring it home. The moment the wheels leave the ground, instinct battles panic. Bruce Carr keeps the nose low, fighting the urge to climb. Altitude is death right now. At height, German radar will see him instantly, anti-aircraft batteries will track him, and fighters will be scrambled. Down low, pressed against the earth, he has a chance. The cockpit vibrates violently as speed builds. The unfamiliar engine roars like an animal straining at its leash. Carr scans the panel, identifying what he can on the fly. Oil pressure, steady. Temperature, rising but within reason. Fuel gauge, full. At least the mechanics had finished their work. Landing gear. He searches for the lever, fingers skimming over switches until he finds one that feels right. He pulls. A solid mechanical thud answers him. The aircraft surges forward as drag disappears. Good. Enough. He pushes the nose down and levels off barely 50 feet above the treetops. Branches whip past beneath his wings. At this height, there is no margin for error. A moment's distraction, a misjudged rise in terrain, and he will be shredded by his own speed. But low flight has always been Carr's strength. The world compresses into a narrow tunnel ahead of him. Everything else fades away. He angles west, then slightly southwest, aligning himself toward France and the advancing Allied front. The compass takes a few seconds to decipher, but once he understands its markings, the needle tells him what he needs to know. Distance is on his side. The fighter's tanks are full, and the range should be enough if he doesn't get lost. For long minutes, nothing happens. No searchlights, no tracer fire, just the blur of forests and fields sliding beneath him at nearly 300 miles per hour. Dawn begins to creep up behind him, a pale glow spreading across the horizon. With every passing minute, the risk changes. Darkness had hidden him. Daylight will expose him to everything. As the sun breaks the horizon, the terrain shifts. Dense forest gives way to farmland, hedgerows slicing the fields into neat patterns. Carr keeps low, sometimes dropping to little more than 20 feet above the ground, following the contours of the land. His eyes burn from the cold wind seeping into the cockpit. His ankle throbs relentlessly, but he ignores it. Then the first rounds crack past his canopy. They come from below and ahead, sharp white streaks tearing upward through the air. Carr flinches instinctively, then realizes what's happening. He's crossed into Allied-controlled territory, and they think he's German. Every gunner on the ground sees exactly what they expect to see. A German fighter screaming in at low altitude, black crosses still visible on the wings. Anti-aircraft crews open fire without hesitation. Tracers crisscross the air around him. The canopy rattles as rounds slam into the fuselage. Carr can hear the impacts, feel the aircraft shudder, but it keeps flying. He has no radio, no way to call out, no way to signal. The aircraft is still wearing the enemy's markings, and at this speed and altitude, no one has time to ask questions. Carr drops even lower. At 20 feet, the prop wash kicks up dust and debris from roads and fields. Farmhouses flash by in blinks of white and grey. Civilians dive for cover as he roars overhead. American soldiers fire rifles and machine guns at him from hedgerows and checkpoints. Every instinct screams to pull up, to escape the chaos, but he knows better. Lower is safer. Faster is survival. For half an hour, he flies through a storm of friendly fire. He later estimates that nearly every .50 caliber gun in the region took a shot at him. The fighter absorbs hit after hit. Warning lights flicker, then stabilize. German engineering, he thinks grimly, and keeps going. At last, he recognizes the layout of an airfield ahead. The familiar geometry of runways, dispersal areas and hangars punches through the adrenaline haze. This is home, or close enough. Carr lines up for approach, heart pounding harder than it had during the takeoff. He pulls back on the throttle slightly, easing the speed down. His hands move automatically to the landing gear lever. Nothing happens. He tries again. Still nothing. No reassuring thump. No change in drag. The gear remains stubbornly retracted. Carr's pulse spikes. He scans the cockpit, searching for an alternate control, a secondary lever, anything that looks like an emergency release. Every label mocks him in unreadable German. Below, anti-aircraft crews are tracking him again. To them, he is still a hostile aircraft lining up on their field. He can see men running to guns, loading belts, preparing to fire. There is no more time. Carr makes the decision instantly. He will land without gear. He lowers the flaps, at least that control he understands, and cuts power. The fighter sinks rapidly, grass rushing up to meet him. At 90 miles per hour, the belly of the aircraft slams into the ground. Metal screams, sparks fly. The fighter skids across the field in a long, grinding slide, throwing up mud and debris before finally shuddering to a stop. Silence crashes in around him. For a heartbeat, Carr just sits there, breathing, alive. Then shouts erupt. Armed men sprint toward the aircraft, rifles raised. They expect a German pilot. The canopy slides back. A mud-covered American in a torn flight suit climbs onto the wing and raises his hands, grinning through exhaustion. "I'm Captain Carr," he says hoarsely, "and I think this is your airplane now." For several long seconds, no one believes him. Rifles remain trained on Bruce Carr as he stands on the wing of the wrecked fighter, hands raised, mud streaked across his face and flight suit. Shouts overlap, confused and angry. Someone orders him to get down. Someone else demands he identify himself. Carr complies slowly, every movement deliberate, aware that a single wrong gesture could end him now, on friendly soil. Military police rush forward, circling the aircraft, eyes wide at the black crosses still painted on the wings and the shattered belly of the fuselage. To them, this looks like the aftermath of a failed enemy attack. The idea that an American pilot could have flown this machine in is unthinkable. Carr is pulled down from the wing and shoved to the ground. Hands search him roughly, finding the pistol still tucked at his side. One MP curses, another tightens his grip on his rifle. Carr keeps talking, voice hoarse but steady, repeating his name, his unit, his squadron, details only an insider would know. It barely slows them. The tension breaks when a staff car skids to a stop near the runway. A colonel steps out, taking in the scene in a single sweep. The ruined German fighter, the furious MPs, the exhausted pilot insisting he belongs here. He recognizes the name immediately. "Where in the hell have you been?" the colonel demands. "And what have you been doing now?" The rifles lower. Carr's legs finally give out. He sinks onto the grass as medics push through the crowd. His ankle is swollen and purple, the joint barely holding together. They cut away his boot and shake their heads. Someone drapes a blanket over his shoulders. Someone else presses a canteen into his hands. The water tastes better than anything he can remember. Within hours, the story explodes across the base. A downed pilot, 4 days missing. Presumed captured or killed, returned in a stolen German fighter, belly-landed under friendly fire. Men drift past the wrecked aircraft just to stare at it, shaking their heads, pointing at the cockpit, at the unfamiliar instruments Carr somehow managed to decipher in the dark. Intelligence officers arrive next. They ask the same questions again and again. How did he start the engine? How did he manage the controls? Did he bring back any documents? Carr answers patiently, though exhaustion drags at every word. He admits freely what he didn't know, what he guessed, what he felt, rather than understood. Flying, he explains, is often about recognizing patterns under pressure. The fighter is hauled away under guard. Engineers swarm over it, photographing everything, cataloguing damage, arguing quietly about how much of it survived the landing. Carr barely notices. His world has narrowed to pain, warmth, and the strange unreality of having succeeded. He sleeps for nearly a full day. When he wakes, the war has caught up with him again. His ankle is wrapped and elevated. His flight suit has been replaced with clean clothes. Outside, engines drone as squadrons come and go. The routine of combat never stops. Carr's escape becomes legend almost immediately, passed from mess hall to hangar with embellishments growing by the hour. He doesn't have long to dwell on it. The front keeps moving. Missions keep coming. Within weeks, Carr is back in the air, flying Mustangs once more, the familiar cockpit fitting him like a second skin. If anything, the experience has sharpened him. He flies with a quiet intensity now, more aware than ever that survival often hinges on choosing the unexpected. Spring approaches, but the fighting grows more desperate. German resistance hardens as Allied forces push deeper into the Reich. The skies fill with aircraft, bombers, escorts, interceptors, sometimes hundreds at a time. Carr racks up victories steadily, his confidence bordering on unsettling calm. Where others hesitate, he commits. Where others break off, he presses. On April 2, 1945, the defining test arrives. Carr leads a flight of 4 P-51s on a reconnaissance sweep over Germany. They cruise at 15,000 feet, scanning the air for movement, when Carr spots something above them. At first, he thinks his eyes are playing tricks on him. Then he realizes the truth. German fighters, dozens of them. They're stacked. From 18 to 25,000 feet, spread across the sky in a massive formation. 60 aircraft, maybe more. A mix of Messerschmitts and Fokker-Wulfs, some of the newest variants still capable of deadly performance. Against them, Carr has 4 Mustangs. Standard doctrine is clear. Disengage, report, live to fight another day. Carr studies the formation, reading its posture, its spacing, its lack of urgency. These pilots aren't expecting trouble. They're conserving fuel, waiting for targets that may never come. Surprise is on his side, and surprise is a weapon he understands intimately. He keys the radio. Engaging. There's no hesitation from his wingmen. They've flown with him long enough to know that when Carr commits, he has a reason. 4 Mustangs tip their noses up and begin the climb, engines howling as they accelerate toward the enemy formation. As they rise into the mass of German fighters, chaos blooms. The Germans scatter, unsure how many attackers they face. Carr slips into the confusion like a blade. He lines up on a Messerschmitt, squeezes the trigger, and watches it disintegrate in a burst of flame. He rolls, shifts targets, fires again. Another fighter falls. Seconds stretch into a blur of speed, fire, and motion. Carr moves with ruthless efficiency, striking and vanishing before anyone can lock onto him. By the time the Germans realize the scale of the attack, it's too late. In 3 minutes, the sky changes. When Carr finally breaks away, 5 enemy aircraft are gone. 5 pilots who will not be flying again. His wingmen account for even more. Against all logic, 4 Americans have torn through a force 15 times their size and lived. As Carr leads his flight home, the radio crackles with disbelief and exhilaration. The war is nearly over, but moments like this still define it. For Bruce Carr, the pattern is unmistakable. When faced with impossible odds, he doesn't look for permission. He looks for a way in. The war does not end with a single moment of silence. It fades unevenly in a series of exhausted breaths. For Bruce Carr, the days after the April battle blur together. Debriefings, paperwork, congratulations delivered in tones that try and fail to sound casual. Word of the engagement spreads quickly. 4 aircraft against more than 60, 15 enemy fighters destroyed, no American losses. Men who hear the story shake their heads and ask the same question. How? Carr never offers a dramatic answer. He talks about timing, about surprise, about not giving the enemy time to think. The explanations satisfy no one, but they're the truth as he sees it. A week later, he is promoted. Shortly after that, a citation is read aloud, dense with formal language about valor, disregard for personal safety, and overwhelming odds. The Distinguished Service Cross is pinned to his uniform. He stands stiffly through it, uncomfortable with the attention, thinking less about medals than about the men who didn't come back. The war has taught him that recognition often comes at random, attached to moments that could just as easily have ended differently. Germany surrenders in May. The fighting in Europe stops. For the first time in years, the sky over the continent grows quiet. Carr is 21 years old, officially credited as an ace, his record thick with missions and victories. He could leave the service now, return home, become another young man trying to fit an extraordinary experience into an ordinary life. He doesn't. Carr stays in uniform because flying is still unfinished business. The aircraft change quickly after the war. Propellers give way to jets. The pace accelerates. Carr adapts easily, as if constant change is the only environment he's ever known. He flies in demonstration teams, pushing new machines through loops and rolls that test their limits. The same curiosity drives him, the same question he's always asked in the cockpit. What can this airplane do, and what can I do with it? Another. War arrives, this time in Korea. Carr returns to combat, flying jet fighters against a new enemy in a new sky. The tactics are different, the speeds are higher, the margins are thinner. Still, the fundamentals remain. Awareness, aggression, discipline. He leads, fights, survives. When it's over, his uniform carries more ribbons, more scars, and the quiet authority of someone who has seen enough not to be impressed by rank alone. Years pass. Then another war calls. Vietnam is nothing like the others. The missions are brutal, repetitive, unforgiving. Close air support, low-level strikes, the same risks day after day without the clear front lines of earlier wars. Carr flies hundreds of missions long after most men his age would have stepped back. He's older now, slower to heal, but no less committed. To him, flying has never been about glory. It is a responsibility, one he refuses to abandon while others still depend on it. When he finally retires, decades of service settle behind him like contrails fading into a clear sky. He has flown in 3 wars, across 3 generations of aircraft, logging hundreds of combat missions. The numbers are impressive, but they never fully capture the man. Carr lives quietly after the military. He attends reunions. He answers questions from younger pilots who look at him with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Sometimes they ask about the stolen fighter, about the night he took off from an enemy airfield with no map, no radio, and no guarantee of survival. He tells the story simply. He talks about hunger and cold, about watching mechanics finish their work, about the moment when surrender felt logical, and how logic isn't always enough. He explains that the decision wasn't heroic in the way people imagine. It was practical. He saw an option others might have dismissed, and he took it. In April 1998, Bruce Carr dies quietly, far from any cockpit. He is buried among soldiers who served in every American war since the nation's founding. His headstone lists his rank and his decorations. It lists the wars he fought in. It does not mention the 4 days alone in a frozen forest. It does not mention the unfamiliar cockpit filled with unreadable instruments. It does not mention the belly landing under friendly fire or the disbelief on the faces of the men who met him on the runway. Some stories don't fit neatly into stone. There are 2 ways to remember Bruce Carr. One is the legend, the pilot who lost his Mustang and flew home in a German fighter, defying every expectation and rewriting what seemed possible. The other is the record, the ace, the commander, the veteran of 3 wars who flew when others would not. Both are true, but the heart of the story lies elsewhere. In November 1944, a young pilot found himself alone behind enemy lines with no good options left. The safe choice was surrender. The reasonable choice was capture. Bruce Carr chose something different, not because he believed he was invincible, but because he refused to accept that his choices were limited to what seemed obvious. He looked at an impossible situation and asked a different question. What else can I do? That question carried him out of the forest, into an enemy cockpit, through hostile skies, and across a lifetime of flight. It is the question that defined him, and the reason his story still endures.